And the first 2 years, I just spent time in and out of, traditional doctors, and they didn't know what to do with me besides medication and lots of scans and MRIs. And for 3 years, I flew from Florida to Washington State to a chronic illness clinic to figure out how I could heal. And did they rarely ever address nutrition? This is the most healing I've seen in the last 9 months out of 10 years. My doctor was like, I've never seen anybody do this. Like, actually, like your progesterone, estrogen, like testosterone, everything went from like zero, and I could feel the hormones like pumping through me. And it's like just off of food, which is wild, and just eliminating vegetables. I was full. Like, it finally got the nutrients that it needed for so many years, and I didn't need to eat as much anymore. So I just feel very satiated with what I am having.
Hey folks, it's Dr. ShawnBaker here. Hey, if you or someone you love is suffering from chronic disease and you're tired of just managing symptoms with potions, pills, and procedures, I want you to check out Revero.com. Our team of dedicated professionals is committed to tackling the root cause of your issue and finally getting you healthy. Hurry up though, our spaces are filling up very quickly. Welcome. Today we have with us a success story with Andrea, who's going to share, I guess start out with a little bit of your background, and then we'll get into what's happened with you over time.
Yeah, of course. So first of all, thank you so much for having me here. So excited to be here. I come from a background of actually insurance, of owning an insurance agency many years ago. I started around the age of 26. So it was quite a journey. And unfortunately, about a year into it, my mom got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer of starting this business. So I actually ended up running the business out of the hospital for a while, which was tremendous stress on me, but so grateful for my mom surviving and going through it. And that kind of opened my eyes to chemo, to nutrition, to so much. And we dived into nutrition a little bit in that journey. That was my first experience really ever. I was a 20-something-year-old that ate whatever, had headaches and dealt with some health issues, but never really thought about what I was eating. And so anyways, years later, unfortunately, owning the business and being under so much stress, with having that business and balancing life and work, I started to develop my own issues. And looking back, they actually started earlier. They were like these, I call them these whispers, of these little whispers of like joint pain or headaches. And I just ignored them until they became like screams. And I had severe fatigue. And I was actually vegan for about 5 years and started to feel worse. And then vegetarian, and then led into keto and carnivore. But I just was going through so much anxiety, panic, fatigue, inflammation, literally my just burning, like somebody had me on fire. It was awful. And the first 2 years, I just spent time in and out of, traditional doctors, and they didn't know what to do with me besides medication and lots of scans and MRIs, and told me I was fine when I knew I wasn't, when I knew there were some serious issues. And the only thing they had really come up with was you have a lot of symptoms of lupus, you have thyroid, hypothyroid, and that's all they could really tell me. So I was really frustrated. And I knew, thankfully, after going through that with my mom, I knew I don't want to take medicine. I want to heal this naturally. And I know there's a way, I just don't know where. So it took quite a few years to figure out, okay, food's going to be my medicine. Even traveling, I traveled to a huge clinic out in Washington State from Florida. So for 3 years, I flew from Florida to Washington State to a chronic illness clinic to figure out how I could heal. And did they rarely ever address nutrition? That to me was wild. So I ended up going to school for nutrition, becoming a health coach, then going to school to understand my mindset and how to really digest my food better and pull out of that fight or flight, out of that stress mode, and learned how to meditate more and create mindfulness. I had to really figure it out for myself, and so much of it. So it took me a while to figure out what foods, and I hate to say diet because that sounds restrictive. It was what foods would truly help me heal and give me my life back.
So you said it sounded like, was lupus the actual official diagnosis that you had at some point, or was that?
So they actually, with lupus, they told me I needed one more symptom to go home and get worse and come back, and I would be diagnosed with lupus. But when I went to the functional doctors, they diagnosed me with Lyme disease, with severe mold toxicity. One doctor said, I've never seen so much mold in somebody, which is not something to be proud of and to advertise. So I dealt with that. I dealt with leaky gut, Epstein-Barr virus, and systemic candida. So those were the things I was actually diagnosed with. I had symptoms of a lot of other things, but it was just like my body, the autoimmune diseases just kept adding up and my body just went haywire to just cracks in my mouth from deficiencies from being vegan. And it was crazy. It was just, I felt like the strangest things, even having sensitivities to chemicals, so really learning how to remove chemicals from like my environment, not just my body.
Yeah. So, obviously, like you said, what was the reason that compelled you to go vegan in the first place? Was it just purely like you thought this was the right way to heal yourself, or was it some other reason?
It's a great question. It was actually just kind of a fluke. I went on a girls' trip to Colorado and we ate a lot of vegetables that week and I just didn't eat any meat. And I was like, I'm not really craving it. Maybe this is a thing. Like you just kind of hear that. You see the documentaries first, right, on Netflix about animals and what they go through and like plants are great, plants are great. So I just thought, well, maybe plants are the way to go. And thought I was really listening to my body, which maybe short term it would have been okay. But I became part of that community and I went to all the vegan festivals and it was fun. I went to the vegan restaurants and it became a thing. I wore the shirts that said powered by plants. And I was proud of it, even though I wasn't feeling good and just not realizing it. Like I was like, oh, this is my health stuff, not realizing, okay, this is actually like not helping the health situation. So I really leaned into it and thought, well, how could plants be bad for me, right? You just grow up, eat your vegetables, eat your vegetables. So I stayed on it for about almost 5 years, and then I went I became vegetarian and then pescatarian. But yeah, I did the best with what I knew and what I had heard, and watching the documentaries, and just kind of getting caught up in it. And again, maybe short term it would have been okay for me and not been so harmful, but long term I feel like it was harmful.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. You said you were wearing the Powered by Plants shirt, and I'm like, who would ever wear a shirt that talks about that? I'm here with this eat beef,
That's all.
be happy shirt on.
Yeah, that's what I knew. So when I meet people now and I talk about carnivore, they look at me like, because sometimes you get that look, but it's like they're not maybe there yet, but I can plant a seed. You know what I mean? I was just really caught up in it, and I did the best with what I knew until I started to really educate myself.
So when you said you ran an insurance company, what kind of insurance was it? Was it health insurance or was it some other insurance?
Yeah, so I sold auto, home, boat, life insurance, all the
Okay.
things. Yeah, yeah. I did that
Okay.
for almost 15 years. I started an agency from scratch. So I love being a business owner, but it was just a very stressful environment too. And that did not make it easier to heal or to really even make the time, right, to figure out how to heal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So you said that all through this journey, and you went to what was the clinic in Washington State? Where was it, like Seattle, or where were you at?
Yeah, it was actually Woodinville. It was Sophia Clinic, Dr. Klinghardt. So he was a big Lyme doctor. And I had read a book about the clinic and was like, that's where I'm going. I mean, I was like,
it's kind of funny. I live next door to Woodinville. I mean,
oh,
the
do
next
you?
town over, and I'm in
Oh.
Snohomish, which is literally, in fact, the little Costco I will go to sometimes is in Woodinville, and it's 10 miles from
Oh, that's
8
funny.
miles
So
from my house.
do you know that clinic? Have you heard of it?
That name sort of sounds familiar. I think
Yeah.
so, and I think maybe I got it. Name does sound. Maybe I might even have interviewed that guy for potentially. I'm thinking, I don't know,
Yeah,
but
Sophia Health Institute. Yeah, it was, and the doctors there, the nurses there were so helpful,
yeah,
but overall it just wasn't, I learned a lot, right, about
yeah.
all the biohacks and lymphatic system and all those things, but nutrition really just wasn't addressed. And obviously that's a big deal.
I don't necessarily discount some of this other stuff, but I think if you leave nutrition off the table, you are seriously hamstringing yourself to get healthier. I mean, these are all like minor things that can make a difference, but if you don't take care of the big things, the sleep, the nutrition, the activity, a few other things I think they're important, stress mitigation, maybe sunshine exposure, then
Yes.
you are definitely not going to heal optimally, and it's going to be a struggle for many, many years. So how did so you go from vegan for 5 years, and then what made you decide to go from vegan to vegetarian? Was there just, I'm tired of this stuff, or you just feel like maybe my health is compromised?
Yeah, like my health is compromised. Obviously, I'm getting some nutrient deficiencies. I'm having fatigue. I'm not feeling better. I need to make a change. And talking to some functional doctors too, saying it's not the easiest way to heal. And I'm like, really? Isn't that the best way to heal? I'm like, no, not necessarily. So just finally being open and curious to a different way and realizing, okay, maybe the cravings were the worst. I had sugar cravings through the roof. Like I was like It always was on my mind when I can add sugar. And that's a big part of the vegan world too, from my experience, right? Was these almond flour cookies and these desserts made with dates and things like that. So it fed into that candida, the dried fruit and all that. It did not help. So it's fed into the inflammation, and I just didn't realize it. So that's when I went vegetarian, and then eventually pescatarian and brought in some fish, and then eventually turned to keto and then carnivore.
Yeah, it does seem like a lot of people on vegan diets, they really go high on the sugar, or in some, whether it's a date sugar or fruit sugar or sugar in their vegan desserts, and that seems to be a big driver, and maybe keeps a lot of people there because they like eating sugar. They're like, oh, this
Yeah,
is
I
good.
was just going to say, it makes you happy. So it's,
and there's sugar all the time.
Right. And I will say, I felt like I was more considered like a healthy vegan too. Like I was eating a lot of vegetables, right? I wasn't eating pizza and pasta and things like that. So I was eating a lot of vegetables thinking, okay, I'm doing it the healthy way. I'm not just kind of.
Did you have some healthy bloating that went with that, perhaps? I don't know.
Yeah, I know. There was a lot, even when I see people having like the Boca burgers or vegetarian burgers now and the highly processed, and just, not realizing too that a lot of the like plant-based protein smoothies, were causing allergies. And I remember I've had all the tests done, all the like specialty labs, right? Tests done. And I remember getting one done and a doctor was like, you have every food allergy. I've never seen it. I've always got that. I've never seen a test this bad. I've never seen someone this bad. I was like, oh, that's great.
Okay. So you decided, well, vegan wasn't working for you. I'll switch over, add a little bit of vegetarian, maybe some eggs in, maybe a little bit of dairy. I don't know what you had. And then eventually you add some fish in there.
Yep.
And did that incrementally improve your health somewhat when you did those things, or no?
I mean, a little bit. Yeah. I mean, definitely a little bit, because I was lacking so much, right? Being vegan for so long. So yeah, I definitely started to help and see a shift and started to feel a little bit stronger. It wasn't any major shift, but I definitely felt a little better.
Okay. How did you get indoctrinated into wanting to do carnivore? I mean, how did that come about?
Yeah, that's an interesting story. So I kind of heard same thing, whispers about it, carnivore, and thought, I mean, just going like keto and having chicken and fish and things and eggs was like a big thing. And even knowing like how to cook chicken again, I was like, what do I do with this? So I had heard a little whispers here and there from different doctors and people. And then it was my chiropractor, Dr. Darcy Mole, and her husband, Keith, did the carnivore diet. And I got off this medication and I've had this healing. And I thought, that sounds amazing. Like she, told me about it and said, have you thought about it? I'm like, no, but I think I want to. And the conversation just inspired me so much. So I went home, I did some research. I found Rebecca Heischman, I found Kelly Hogan, the steak and butter gal. And I was like, I'm doing this. I came across your YouTube channel, and I was like, wow, like this strength, right? That's what I was really looking for, was not necessarily to be thin, but to be strong again. And I was like, look what these people are doing. This is amazing. So I was fortunate enough to work with Rebecca for a little bit, with Kelly, with different groups, and they were so inviting and so helpful, because it's not easy to start and to do. And I was accepting of that. I knew that this kind of healing would be so powerful, and I'd have to kind of figure out what works best for me. But once I did the research, I was like, how have I not heard about this before? Like, how is this out there and is so beneficial, especially in my case with autoimmune? And I didn't know about it. This is crazy. So yeah, I was curious and just went for it.
So back to, initially when you were diagnosed with autoimmune disease, I don't know if you saw a rheumatologist or whoever would be involved in that. Typically, a lot of times rheumatology ends up taking care of autoimmune stuff. But did they ever say, don't eat red meat? Or, it didn't sound like they gave you much nutrition, but often the advice is, don't eat red meat, maybe do a plant-based diet, maybe, whatever. I don't know. Did they have any, what was your perception of particularly things like red meat growing up and through the years? I mean, was it probably negative, I imagine?
Yeah. I mean, my dad has had 4 or 5 heart attacks. Mm-hmm. So it was like, don't have meat, especially red meat. Like red meat should be.
Your dad was on a carnivore diet when he had those, correct?
No, my dad's never done carnivore.
I'm being facetious. I'm sure he was eating a little bit of meat and a bunch of other junk too. And
yeah, no,
meat, right?
I wish he would, but his doctors still tell him, right? Stay away from the butter, the eggs, your cholesterol. So Yeah, red meat was always kind of programmed into me of it's every once in a while, it's a treat.
Yeah. Well, it
And
is a treat. It is a treat. It's a treat
it
you
is
should
a
have
treat,
every
but not
day.
every once in a while.
So people ask me, don't I ever get tired and cheat on my diet? And I said, you got to have a cheat meal every day. I'm eating ribeye steak damn near every day. And it's
Yeah.
like, every day is a wonderful, wonderful experience. Okay. So you found, the usual suspects, a little bit of me, a little bit of other folks. You said you're going to do carnivore, come in with probably some level of apprehension, I suppose. So how did the transition work? How did it impact your health?
Well, to start, there was so much of I don't even know how to cook it. Like I don't even know what to do with it. Where do I buy it and what kind? So, yeah, I mean, I saw almost immediate results. I was on a trip with a friend and I thought, okay, I'd heard about priming and I thought, okay, I'm going to slowly ease into this and see how I do. I'll just have a little bit less vegetables while I'm on this trip. I'll make all the things. I'll have like a rotisserie chicken and I'll have burgers and lamb and veal and I got bacon as well. I did bacon without the nitrates and without sugar, but I just went for it. And as I was eating, I was like starving all of a sudden. It was just, I can't even explain it, but I just remember eating and thinking, oh my God, this is so good. Like, I can't stop. Like, my meals are I'm so excited to eat. Like, I was so restricted before. And I came from eating chicken, fish, and vegetables, olive oil, avocados, things like that. No processed
So
foods, no
your diet
sugars.
before was reasonably good by most people's
Really
standards, right?
good.
Yeah.
Rarely
Okay.
ever having any, like I hadn't had, table sugar, cane sugar in 10 years. It's all natural, like fruit, very little fruit too, no processed foods, tons of
Okay.
vegetables.
So you're eating a clean,
So
healthy diet by most people's standards, and you were still sick. Is that fair to say?
still sick, still
Okay.
sick. Yeah.
All right.
Not knowing like what I
Were
was
you
doing.
overweight at the time? Were you overweight?
I was actually underweight because I had
Okay.
COVID.
Okay.
Yeah, I had
Oh,
COVID 4 times. And the fourth time I lost some weight from it and really struggled to recover. So that's when
okay.
I actually thought, I'm going to start adding in some red meat. And I started to gain weight back and feel healthier. And then
Okay.
decided, okay, this few weeks or a couple weeks, I'm going to just get rid of the vegetables little by little, add in more meat, a ton more, and see how I do and see if I enjoy it. And I enjoyed it thoroughly. Again, people say, well, what is your cheat? I'm like, there is no cheat. I feel satiated. I'm content. Like this just doesn't even cross my mind. So within 3 weeks, my period came back, which I'd struggled to have a regular cycle for years.
How old
And
are you? How old are you now?
I'm 43.
43. Okay. Okay.
Yep. So for years it had been an issue. I mean, my chronic illness journey has been 10 years in June. So it's been years of having, irregular cycles. So all of a sudden, 3 weeks in to not even strict carnivore, but just like easing in. And then after a week and a half, went strict carnivore and it came back. I was like, this is like a miracle. I cannot believe this. So immediately saw results and then my cravings went away. And I can't even tell you the freedom for those of you out there that have had those cravings that's all you can think about every day is like, what kind of little cheat sweet can I have in the afternoon? And it's like, it's so much on your mind. And those just went away. And it was freedom, complete freedom from that.
Yeah. And so, because a lot of people say, well, the only reason carnivore work is because you lose weight, and any diet that lets you lose weight will get you better. And you didn't lose weight; you actually gained some weight and got healthier.
Over 20 pounds.
And
Yeah.
then the other people will say, well, any diet that removes junk food will get you healthier. And you had already done that,
I
and
already
you're still
done
not
that.
healthy. And it didn't happen until you went carnivore. And I think this is
Yes.
the thing. I want to emphasize that point for those people that are the naysayers and the doubters and the balanced diet people. And I say, look, there is a percentage of the people where they just need to remove even vegetables, even these supposedly healthy, perfect nutrition vegetables, which I'm saying that somewhat jokingly. Okay. So within a very short period of time, you're like a couple of weeks, period comes back, you start feeling better. What was I don't know what your living situation, if you have family around you, but what was the general reaction to yourself and to maybe others around you?
I mean, at first, I think most people thought it was crazy, to be honest with you. They were like, oh my God, your cholesterol, like what's going to happen? And that it can't be good for you. And I ended up doing lion diet for about 90 days. So I realized that not the oxalates, but histamine reaction started coming up for me. Didn't realize what it was, but headache and sinus pressure, sneezing after I was eating. And I was like, okay, my histamine bucket is full. I need to be aware of like how I'm making my food, what kind of food I'm having. So I had to cut out bacon, anything high in histamine. So I did lamb for almost 90 days, which was extremely beneficial. It just felt like everything calmed down. And the people in my life, I think, my mom was very supportive, but I think most people were like, are you sure? What about your cholesterol? Is this really safe? I mean, vegetables aren't bad. It's so funny. And I still talk about it to everybody, anyone that will listen to me, because after 10 years of working on my health and having some healing throughout the way for sure, this is the most healing I've seen in the last 9 months out of 10 years. That's
Yeah.
insane.
So I mean, and it's always nice when you have people that have done it both ways. You've done a fully plant-based way, you've done vegan, you've done vegetarian, you've done pescatarian. So you can have a comparison, and now you've done carnivore. And I mean, if you could say 1 to 10, how would you rate both of those diets with regard to their healing and health potential?
Yeah, I mean, keto was helpful. Keto was definitely helpful, but I had to do like keto-ish because I couldn't have like nuts and seeds and beans. But, the vegan honestly probably made it worse, at least the point that I was at. It did not support me. Where, keto was more of a 7 or 8, and then carnivore being like a 10 as far as beneficial.
And vegan's what, like a 2 or something?
Yeah, I know.
Somewhere in that
It's
neighborhood.
yeah, and again, everyone's got to figure it out for themselves. I just wasn't there yet, and I feel like the biggest thing was being open and curious. I'm gonna just be curious about this and try it and see if my body says yes, please, and it did. So I stuck with it.
Well, good for you for doing that. I mean, that's, like I said, I think it's so many people get sick with chronic disease, autoimmune disease, whatever it is, and they just kind of outsource it to the doc. And the doctor's, well, nothing we can do about it. Just put you on these meds for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And thanks. Good for you on trying that, because not only did it help you, but listening to this, well, other people listen to this and maybe take it upon themselves to do it as well. So let's talk about cholesterol, because you were underweight. You look, from what I can tell, you look like you're fairly lean. I would predict that your cholesterol probably is relatively high-ish. Is that, or do we know?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the lab work in front of me, to be honest. Honestly, when I went and had my blood work done about, I want to say 4 or 5 months in, I'm about to have blood work again next month. All the levels were great. My HDL, LDL, triglycerides, cholesterol, everything was in order. So, and I want to say it was at least 4 months in or so, 4 or 5 months in, which most people would have thought, oh my gosh, everything's going to be out of whack and high and not. And I started understanding cholesterol better too, and just educating myself of, okay, let's take a look more of the HDL and LDL and the triglycerides, not so much the total cholesterol. And even just my hormones, my doctor was like, I've never seen anybody do this. Like, actually, like your progesterone, estrogen, like testosterone, everything went from like 0, and I could feel the hormones like pumping through me. And it's like just off of food, which is wild, and just eliminating vegetables.
Well, I mean, you think about it, anything we synthesize in the body requires building materials, and when you're providing what I think is optimal fuel, I mean, I use this analogy as, I'm made up of all these millions and millions and billions of animal cells. And, it'd be nice if I wanted to build more, it'd be nice if I had some,
Yeah.
It's like building a brick house out of straw and mud when you got a pile of bricks over there. You're like, I'd use the bricks. It's a lot easier, right? So
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, because, obviously my impression is you're much healthier and happier now than you were 10 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever it might be. That's a fair statement, correct?
I mean, yeah, I went from my mom driving my car for me because I couldn't drive. I was in so much pain, to doing everything like on my own. So yeah, it was
so quality of life vastly improved. Now, let's just say 6 months from now, a year from now, your cholesterol goes up significantly higher, which it could. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it did. How does that impact your thought? Would you say, I need to change my diet because of that? Because some people say, well, theoretically, your cardiovascular risk may be going up, and I would argue that maybe not. How does that change your calculus? Is it like, look, the quality of life is so much better that I'm willing to just say, let's see what happens, versus, I better change things and go back to a more balanced approach, or take drugs or something like that? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think throughout this whole journey, right, I've learned so much of 10 years of so much pain and panic and fear, that I've learned to truly listen to my body. That is so powerful. I always say we're our own best doctor. You know what I mean? Like, we know what's best for us. So lab work can only take you so far. I do feel like if I'm feeling great, feeling stronger, more clarity, have my cycle, like my body is doing well and I continue to progress, that to me means more than anything, than any blood work. That's personally for me. So, and I feel like also if something did come up that was questionable, I would do my research on it and dig into it. I wouldn't panic. I wouldn't lead with fear and think, oh, I got to change my diet. I would just be curious about it and want to dig more into it. But it wouldn't deter me from doing what I'm doing. I would be much more likely to be listening to my body and how am I feeling, how am I looking, how's my strength than anything, because that to me is the most important.
Hey folks, it's Dr. ShawnBaker here. Hey, if you or someone you love is suffering from chronic disease and you're tired of just managing symptoms with potions, pills, and procedures, I want you to check out Revero.com. Our team of dedicated professionals is committed to tackling the root cause of your issue and finally getting you healthy. Hurry up, though. Our spaces are filling up very quickly. Now, are you still in Florida? Or where do you live
I am.
these days?
Yeah.
Okay, so sunshine, nice weather. I'm jealous because
Yes.
it's cold where I'm at right now, unfortunately. But, healing and health in general is more than just nutrition. I mean, obviously, I'm a huge proponent of nutrition. I think this is critical. But what are some of the other things? Because you said you went through this healing journey for a decade of trying to figure out what works. What other things do you still currently do or did you do that seems to be effective for you?
So I call it like a virtual toolbox when I work with clients of all these different tools that we have instead of having the sugar, the alcohol, right, the unhealthy habits. For me, one was an infrared sauna. I got one years ago and I feel like that was really beneficial. Another one for me is just simple as taking Epsom salt baths. Sleep was huge for me, like getting to bed at a certain time, ideally before 10 o'clock, and getting a full 8 hours of sleep in there. So that for me personally, if I don't get enough sleep or don't get proper sleep, I don't do well. Like my body needs that. And I know I feel stronger and we know that we heal when we sleep. So that's extremely beneficial for me. Sunlight, huge. I know not everybody can get that all year long. I'm fortunate to be in Florida and most days, even though it's a little cloudy today. I get sunlight in the morning walking my dog. I get around dusk. And I've been this year leaning more into getting some sunlight in the middle of the day, which has helped my nervous system drastically. So you can imagine years. I had 2 surgeries throughout this process, one being having my breast implants removed, and 2, a cavitation surgery, which was told if you get this surgery, everything will be healed by this one surgery. And it actually, unfortunately, made me worse. So a lot of panic and stress and overwhelm. And I remember at one point taking my supplements and almost shaking, being like rushing to take them and being so nervous and just thinking, how am I going to ever heal if I'm in this stress mode? How am I ever going to really heal? Even like when it comes to digestion. So I teach people mindful eating. And that's just taking a few deep breaths before they eat and putting their fork down. Or for my case, I don't even want to use forks or anything anymore. It's like using my hands, but just like taking breaths in between, looking at their plate, looking at their food, being mindful, feeling gratitude. And I've also practiced informal and formal mindfulness. So breathing techniques, meditation every day to really rewire my brain, right? Because when you go through so much like that, or even whatever we go through in their childhood, we're kind of wired a certain way. So I was literally rewiring my brain with being mindful of how am I breathing, how am I feeling? Because so many years of chronic illness, you can get stuck in that. Really, even if you change your diet and you do things, you can still get stuck in that, if you don't fully step out of it to create some mindfulness and to create some new habits and shift that mindset, even the way we talk to ourselves, right? So if I was constantly saying, oh, I feel this about my illness and, getting attached to those diagnoses, that would be not helpful for me in my mindset. So our cells, they say we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day and 90% are the same as the day before. So how am I going to change and grow and evolve if I'm having the same thoughts, lead the same feelings and the same actions? So I just did a lot of work on my mindset and how I feel about myself. No matter what weight I was, even when I was my sickest, I still truly loved who I was. I knew my heart and soul and knew that I had to heal. So I wasn't defined by the breast implants or any other things. I really worked on that. And I think that was a huge part of my healing journey as well.
Let me ask you just on the breast implant thing, because you had the breast implants explanted. We call it explant when we remove an implant.
Yep.
And were they silicone based? Were they water based? Why did you have them removed? And was that when you were carnivore or previous to carnivore?
So it was about I think it was about 10 years ago, somewhere around there, maybe 9 years ago. I had a friend who said, have you heard of BII, breast implant illness? And I was like, no. And she's like, you have a lot of the symptoms. This could be it. So she gave me a video. I watched it. I joined a Facebook group for it and learned about it and thought they were saline. So I knew that they weren't extremely harmful, but I still knew it was something foreign in my body, right? We get these environmental toxins, and the last thing I want is it in my body. And I'd felt years earlier it wasn't right for me. I didn't need that. So I went and had them, I had the explant surgery done, I was pretty sick when I went in for it. And they gave me some harsh antibiotics, which did not help the leaky gut. So it took me time just to recover from it. Extremely grateful I had it done. I had some surgeons tell me that if I had it done, I would absolutely hate myself and hate what I look like. So it was really important that I found a surgeon that was on board for it, didn't want to put them back in. And that was kind of a nice, not to TMI, but my chest did grow with Carnivore. So I was like, well, that worked out. I was able to get rid of them and have something natural and beautiful and not have anything foreign in me, which just didn't feel right for so many reasons.
Yeah, one of the things with surgery, and I don't know if you were vegan at the time, but there's been studies out there now. In fact, a recent meta-analysis showed that across the board, vegans heal worse than people that are omnivorous that are consuming meat. And so, I mean, there's been now a number, and this was a plastic surgery series where they looked at all kinds of different plastic surgery procedures, and they found that by almost completely conclusively that the vegans always did worse with their healing, just because, and it makes sense. You think they just don't have the nutrition there. So it's interesting that, I don't know, it sounds like that might have predated your vegan experience maybe a little bit.
No, it's funny you say that because I was vegan and the surgeon had a vegan chef there. Like they had vegan food they would give you to eat while you were there. So yeah, so it did not help any. I remember eating rice and beans like after surgery. So obviously it took a while to recover because I was vegan probably a little while after that too. So yeah, not the best, option.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so you mentioned something about, you have some clients. So I assume you're sharing some of this knowledge with some people. So tell us a little about that. What do you do?
Yeah. So leaving the insurance industry during the pandemic, just realizing I can't do this anymore. I need to fully heal, right? The stress of it was too much and I needed to heal. So I left. I sold my agency and I was fortunate enough for some of the insurance agents that were in that field to say, hey, like we're sick too. We're business owners and we're sick. Will you come help us or will you come help our employees? So I was thrilled, right? I was thrilled to go back and start helping people. And I ended up working with a lot of business owners and just busy professionals that were overwhelmed and stressed and didn't really know what to do besides medication. So I just developed a program where I really help people focus on nutrition and of course cutting out, gluten, dairy, for some people dairy, not everybody, sugar, processed foods, and then also helping them with their mindset and learning how to breathe and be present, understanding their thoughts. So I really did a little bit of supplementation, not much. We also talked about like toxins in the home, right? So everything that I had went through, I basically created a business out of it and the things that I felt were super important. Nutrition, of course, being number one, but also the toxins. If we're not eating toxic foods, we have to also make sure we're not taking in toxins other ways. And I got a non-toxic mattress, cleaning products, my personal care products, makeup, everything. I changed everything. So I understood how toxic they were and I felt it. I could go into a new home where everything was off-gassing and feel pain. So I didn't have a choice with this stuff. So my goal with working with other people was before they got to that point where their body was screaming, helping them while the whispers were there and starting to make change in their environment, whether it's relationships or, toxic relationships or chemicals or, understanding their nutrition and really what their body was and understanding that fat isn't the enemy, kind of leaning into that. So it's been beautiful, especially the mindset part. I've learned that people are more likely to stick with, I won't say a diet, but a way of nourishing their bodies like carnivore or keto, that it's beneficial when they have that mindset, right? When they're able to shift that and they have, whether it's meditation or breathing techniques, to really allow them to continue with it when it does get challenging and it does get hard or they have to kind of figure it out and do the research. So that for me seems like it's work with people where it's long-term instead of being something where they're going without, they're restricting and they're miserable. It allows them to really tap into their body, listen to it and be mindful. And that is so powerful.
Given, and I'll just put a plug in for what we're doing with our company, Revero, because, you spent 10 years trying to figure this stuff out. From the beginning, you went to physicians, they said, nutrition doesn't really matter. Just,
Mhm.
take these meds or do all these tests and stuff like that. How, if you had a physician that was on board with lifestyle nutrition and support from the very beginning, would that have changed? I mean, it probably would have caused you to skip over 9 or 10 years of suffering. Is that fair to say?
It would have changed everything, not only with the healing, honestly, which is a huge part, but just with the support of not feeling alone. For those of you that have dealt with and dealing with illness, it feels so lonely, especially when you have things going on that traditional doctors have no idea. So the not feeling alone is the biggest part, to know that you've got a team and you've got people there to, we're here to help. We're going to help you figure this out. You're not going to do it on your own. That's huge. And then that support of, yeah, nutrition is everything. Let's help you figure out what to eat, how to do it, when to do it, why to do it. Just explaining it would have saved me years for sure. And it's not that I have regrets, because I'm so grateful for my journey and everything I've learned through it. But yeah, it would have been really nice to have that support and to shorten it up and not have to go this many years to figure out, oh, wow, this is really beneficial. I finally, figured out the most beneficial thing I can do is what I'm eating and how to eat.
Yeah, I mean, I interviewed someone 2 days ago, kind of similar type of scenario where, she had this chronic disease. It's called chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy, and was put through, I mean, literally without exaggeration, over $1 million worth of infusion medications over a period of 5 years with minimal benefit. I mean, that's $1 million, right? That someone paid for. I mean, she didn't have to pay for it out of pocket, but we all did as, people that pay into health insurance premiums and so on. And she went carnivore, and within 2 months, it was like, disease is gone. It's just, it's mind-boggling that, people go through all this stuff unnecessarily, which is such a tragedy in my mind. So glad
Yeah.
that we can start to make a difference on this. So then,
Can I interrupt real quick and say something
absolutely,
about that?
yeah.
Thank you. So I spent about $250,000 of my own money. No insurance, going to all these world-renowned clinics to find healing. So it's a lot of money that could have gone into retirement and savings, taking out second equities, credit card debt, like all of it, just because I was like, I don't want to die. I knew I was getting really sick, and I knew that I did my will years ago. I did everything because I was like, things aren't going well. I'm spending so much money. I don't know what to do. So and that was again another driver of, I've got to be able to help other people to avoid spending this kind of money. This is so unfair. Most people can't. So yeah, I feel for people having to spend money like that, because it's very scary.
All right, you said, initially you went out traveling in Colorado, a bunch of girls that convinced you to go to vegan, you have friends. Now that you've been doing this for a while and clearly have gotten healthier and better, and probably your friends have seen that,
Mm-hmm.
have you rubbed off on any of them, or they still think you're crazy? Or what's the story on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think they probably always thought I was a little crazy, but in a good way. But a friend of mine, actually, Tracy, that I went to that trip with, she was super excited. She's done keto and a little bit of carnivore, so she was like really excited. She's like, oh my gosh, like I made breakfast every morning, and it was like a spread of meat and bacon and like all the things. So she was excited about it, and she was all for it. I think other friends, unfortunately, I have good friends. I don't think I had one friend too, my friend Elizabeth. She had done carnivore a couple of years ago. Her doctor actually had recommended it. And I thought, when she first did, I thought, wow, that's crazy. I don't know if I could ever do it. And that sounds scary. So that helped, because that was some support there. My other friends were more like curious, and like I would get things like, hey, that's interesting you're doing that. I think if I gave up dairy, I'd feel better. If I gave up sugar, I'd feel better. So friends were pretty supportive. I think it was more, strangers that I would talk to, people, acquaintances, people I'd come in contact with that were just like, wait, what? So some curiosity, a lot of support, but a lot of, are you sure that's right for you too? You know what I mean? And just a lot of people, the cholesterol thing just comes up constantly of, are you sure that's right? Should you be on it longer? Is it safe? And people saw me get healthier and healthier. So I think that helped as well. It wasn't like I was deteriorating and I was at the gym lifting more weights. I'm going to yoga, like I'm doing all the things, and they're like, oh, wow. But I did get like a neighbor this morning, sweetest man. He was just like, you look at you and you think, oh, she's so healthy. She's a health coach. She must be vegan. I kind of giggled. And then you talk to you and you're like, only meat? Really? And I was telling him like how excited I was about it, how much it's helped me because he's dealt with some health issues. So he's like, yeah, you just would never guess it. I would just assume you're a vegan. That's the healthy way. I'm like, not necessarily.
Well, we went through a good decade or more of plant-based propaganda. Certainly. I mean, I think once the corporations started to smell some money in veganism, they pushed it pretty hard, and so people we're sort of they just hold that up there, and they find a few examples of people that are healthy despite being on a vegan diet, and they say, well, this is what everybody does, and this is the greatest way to live, and the reality is very different in many cases. And so now people have that in their conscience. But fortunately, it's turning. And I will share, some data I saw the other day. There's a survey done in Europe looking at 5 different countries and looking at supermarket preferences. And for the first time ever, this is ever since they've been doing this survey, people have said, we plan to eat more red meat for the first time ever. And the reason for that they're giving is because it is healthier. So that message is turning. We are making, all of us crazy carnivores have been screaming about red meat's not killing you and it's actually healthy. I think is actually having an impact on a wider scale. When you were, so obviously when you were vegan back 5-6 years ago, whenever it was, you probably had a lot of support. People probably weren't. Did you get a lot of backlash for being vegan, or compared to now? I mean, would you say there's a difference in the acceptance rates?
Yeah, I would say definitely more support being vegan. I think people thought, well, you're eating a lot of vegetables. You know what I mean? It just seemed, oh, that's healthy, right? So I would definitely say a few people saying, are you sure you want to give up meat altogether? Not necessarily red meat, but meat altogether. But for the most part, I would say it was just a community of, this is amazing, we're doing it. And it was looked at as different, but so acceptable, right? So it wasn't like the traditional standard American diet, but it was different, but very acceptable. Where going carnivore was like, that's really different, and is that safe? And especially telling people I've ate red meat for nothing but red meat for 90 days. They're like, is that safe? So I think people really questioning the red meat part of it and questioning, aren't you missing vegetables? Is that really, okay to do? And are you sure you want to continue?
Well, I mean, you went 90 days on carnivore. You obviously didn't have any bowel movements during that time. Is that right or no?
Oh, I did. Yeah. Yeah. I know that. I know you're being. Yeah, I get that too. Like, how are you going without fiber? Because that's not even possible. And I was like, it is. And for me, a big part of that has been electrolytes. So that has been my savior. I've not, everyone talks about too, like some people love salt and but for me, again, listening to my body, I understood, okay, I needed a lot of electrolytes. I could go to the bathroom. I didn't hold it in for 90 days. That would have been pretty bad. And I did fine. Like I always thought the same thing. You have to have the fiber. You have to have the greens. Like, how else would you go? How else would you have normal bowel movements? That's not safe. But that definitely wasn't the case. So
Yeah, I think that's one of the other misconceptions we have is
yeah.
that belief that you're not going to you're going to be constipated, and that's not the case for the vast majority of people. So you said you started out on a lion diet, you had histamine issues, you went lamb for a while. What does your diet look like currently, and how long have you been doing it again? What's the time frame you've been doing this now?
So next week will be 9 months.
All right.
The first couple months, I ate everything in the sense of chicken and veal and lamb and beef and turkey, eggs, bacon. I ate it all the first couple months. And then I started to develop that histamine reaction. So that's when I did lamb. I did lamb. I chose lamb. I felt like I had less reaction, which I had really good success with Billy Doe meats. So I did lamb only for the 90 days. And I felt like everything really calmed down. I took a supplement to help with the DAO, to help with the histamines, and it got better and better. And then I reintroduced. So now I'm back to having some beef, some bison. I have lamb. I actually do have salmon as well. So I've kind of got a good mix there. I can't say there's any desired. I mean, I will keep adding in more meats, but I just feel so satiated. I don't feel restricted, which I felt tremendously over the years. It was such a restrictive diet, I felt like, for so many years. So there's this that I never had felt satiated, like truly satiated. And I didn't even know what that felt like. So I just feel full. And I went from eating a lot, like 3,000 calories and, just tons of protein, tons more protein than fat. I'm definitely higher fat and lower protein now, but just so hungry and eating so much where I was like, I can't get enough in. And then all of a sudden one day I woke up and I was like, I'm just not that hungry. Like I can't, like I see people eating a ton of meat and stuff, and then my body just kind of, felt like I was full. Like it finally got the nutrients that it needed for so many years, and I didn't need to eat as much anymore. So I'm just a big supporter of listening to my body. So I just, ate as much protein than in fat. And I always keep the fat higher, but I just feel very satiated with what I am having between the bison, the beef, the lamb, the salmon.
And the fat you're getting is coming from where? Is it just the fat that's with the meat itself, or are you adding some fat in there? How do you keeping the fat high?
So I have a lot of tallow. Tallow and I are best friends. So I do a lot of tallow, a lot of beef tallow, and I order just like straight lamb fat. And I won't cook it like, I'll just cook it a little bit, and I'll eat a lot of lamb fat as well. So then the fat that comes on the meat too. And if I'm having like ground lamb or ground beef too, higher in fat. So I have a lot of it, and I enjoy it quite a bit. I will say it's almost like a snack to me. People say it's a cheat. What was your snack? What was the cheat? It was like, I guess the lamb fat.
All right. So to summarize, let's just take you at your sickest. Your mom had to drive because you were in too much pain and that type of stuff. What were the things, if you could list off, that improved since you went carnivore? Even things you didn't expect. Like some people say, my skin got better or whatever. I mean, what were the things that illnesses that got better than maybe other things you've noticed?
So many, and I'll do my best to remember everything, but the cycle coming back was huge because for me, hormones are really, really important for everything in our bodies. So that was a really big deal for me to get my cycle back and feel stronger and feel the hormones and know. I just felt like my skin, everything felt better with that. Not having the fatigue in the afternoon. I remember having afternoons where I felt like somebody was literally like holding me down. I couldn't get up. So I don't have any dip. There's no need for, I need something to kind of pick me up. It's the afternoon. I don't drink coffee. I've never drank coffee. So it's just water all day long and then a little treat with a sparkling water maybe. So that was really big for me, not having that fatigue, because that stops your whole day. All of a sudden when you're so tired like that, the strength. I can remember being at the gym a few months in. I don't know exactly where it was, but I remember being like doing a leg machine and be thinking, I've never felt so strong. Like this strength, like I was always like thin, but I wanted to be strong. And I just felt this inner strength that I never felt my whole life. I've working out since I was 14. That was powerful. Better sleep for sure. Having some nights of it being a little off on when I didn't know exactly my ratio of like how much fat or protein, but overall better sleep and clarity. Having more focus and more clarity felt really good and really empowering. Obviously, things like just being able, and that's silly that sounds, but those of you who have dealt with chronic illness, just being able to clean my own home, make my food every day, work at the same time, go work out that day, plus do the sauna in the morning. Back in the day, it was like one thing a day. I would either work or I could work out or I could do the sauna. I couldn't do several things. I just did not have the energy. I didn't have the strength. Talking, I remember struggling to get enough air in just to speak back then. So it was everything, just the inflammation and the burning in my body was so painful. And just the inflammation continuing to decline and decline and decline. My skin being better. There's just, honestly, there's so much. The strength, the clarity, but the energy levels has probably been the coolest because that's the best feeling, right? It's like when we're sluggish and we can't get things done, but I'm a get things done kind of person. I love accomplishing things. I love setting goals. I love helping my clients. So the better I feel and the more strength and the energy I have, the more I can help others. And that's very empowering.
Yeah, that's quite a list of things that have improved. Negatives. Have you had any negatives thus far since you've been carnivore?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, yeah, that I have just like speed bumps of the histamine reactions, or in the beginning, having maybe some loose stool and reading about, okay, so understanding how much fat or protein to have, not necessarily negatives, but just speed bumps of where it would have been easy to quit. It would have been so easy to get up and be like, I can't do this. I don't know what to do. But learning to learn from people like you and Rebecca and Kelly and like different people out there, and listening to your podcasts and your episodes like this and understanding, okay, there are going to be some moments where I just have to figure out what my body needs. So absolutely. Did it stop me? No. The healing was so tremendous that I knew this was the way to go. And I knew that I still had to listen to my body and figure it out, that I wasn't going to maybe be able to eat a stick of butter, right? That I wouldn't be able to have other things like people. Doesn't mean it wasn't going to work for me. I just had to figure out what worked best for me.
So I guess for, and if you were just to, well, let me just say this. We're almost to the end of our time here. Anything else you want to communicate that I didn't ask you that you think might be important for people to understand?
Yeah, I would just say for those of you that haven't tried or have tried a little bit and, being carnivore, switching your diet, to be open and curious, and to do the research and figure out, see what is working for others, be open and curious, just try it. Because I think at least being a vegan, I was kind of closed off, right? This is the way I'm doing it and that's it. Plants are the way to go. So just opening it up a little bit, being open and curious, finding support wherever you can so you don't feel alone in it. That's ideal. So yeah, just be open and curious, find the support, give it a try, and listen to your body.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I think you have to take health in your own hands in many ways. And I do think that support is incredibly important. I mean, like I said, it can be a lonely road when you're sick. That's enough of a stress on your body. And then trying to do something that you're not really well supported on is doubly challenging. So having a supportive environment is incredibly important. Do you have a website, social media presence that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I do. So you can email me at andreajoyhealthcoach@gmail.com. You can find me on Facebook as Andrea Joy. My website is andreajoyhealthcoaching.com. You can reach out to me there. I am on TikTok. I'm on Instagram, on YouTube. YouTube, I've shared a little bit more of my carnivore journey and more of the hiccups too that I've had to really inspire people to know, hey, there could be some speed bumps, keep going. So yeah, I mean, Andrea Joy Health Coaching, you can find me pretty much anywhere.
Wonderful. So Andrea Joy. All right. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate your sharing your story. I'm sure it is going to impact many people and hopefully like little by little. I remember that old Breck shampoo commercial where it's like, I told two friends and they told two friends and then pretty soon you got a bunch of friends on the screen. Yeah. So thanks for doing this. Appreciate it. Have a wonderful day in beautiful, warm, not cold, rainy Florida.
Thank you so much. Right. I so appreciate you letting me be here. Thank you.
Likewise. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.